Peter M. and Santosh B, thank you very much for sponsoring this morning's cup of coffee, the Mean Bean. It's truly appreciated. Let's have a chat this morning, y'all, about the countdown to the collapse here in the United States of America. Welcome to Prepper Nation. I am John. Thank you very much for watching, for listening, for subscribing to the channel, all that good stuff. It's truly appreciated. So let's get right into it. The countdown to the collapse of the United States of America. Now, where did this topic come from? Well, I think it's an interesting topic. And actually, one of the two gentlemen that donated for this morning's cup of coffee sent along a link to a video. And sir, I watched the video. I thought it was intriguing enough so that I wanted to put out my own video and it's hard to do, but kind of predict time frame by time frame as we move along until post-election 2024, what this place is really going to look like for the average American. So it would be impossible to predict everything. Like the day that we're going to finally see the collapse or, the number one cause of the collapse. I still think it's going to be economic, but that's based on societies that have collapsed in the past. Okay. I don't really know for sure. And look, I feel like, and I've said this for a long time now, I feel like we are in a slow motion, slow fall collapse. And I feel like this is going to take decades. I'm not sure how long we've been in this collapse, but I feel like we've been stumbling, as I've said previously, since the September 11th attacks. I think that's when the stumbling probably first started. And then we began to see cracks from there. But I get it. Other people don't think the United States is in a collapse whatsoever. For some other people out there, it's not a collapse until they wake up and there's no more grid whatsoever. There's no more standing army. There's no more anything, no more infrastructure. And we're going to have to agree to disagree on that. I respect that opinion, but again, I think we're in a slow motion collapse. And I think we have been for a while. So the question is this morning, or the topic, I should say, um, what does the United States look like moving forward? Maybe not even month by month, but you know, season by season until we get past the presidential election of 2024. And yeah, folks, I think we're going to have one. Um, I know some of you don't. I know some of you don't think we'll be here as the United States of America in 2024. And I certainly respect that position as well. I think we're going to get there, but it's going to be a mess. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's going to be fair when you get right down to it. But I do feel like the masquerade will take place, so to speak. So this month, now we are in September, right? Yes, September and October of 2023. What can we expect here in the United States of America? So I'm just going to go down a bullet point list. Please add anything that I've missed in the chat. If you agree with a bullet point, you disagree with one, if you have one that you want to throw in there, feel free to do so in the chat. Chat replay is always on here at Prepper Nation, unless I mess something up, which happens from time to time. So I think this month and next month, it's going to be all about the cost of living for the average American. This is not anything new. This has been the theme for a while, but I think it's really going to set in that cost of living is going to be a primary concern for so many people. India, for those that missed this news, this just broke a couple of days ago, I think. India has now recorded the driest grain harvest and driest temperatures that they've had during the growing season in a century, in 100 years. So food is an issue in India. And remember, they're not exporting anything out. They're keeping their grain at home and they're like in panic mode at this point. So they're going to have to pay additional amounts of money to import what they need for their people, what they're lacking, that surplus that they just don't have. As they bid on this grain, this is going to force other countries like your Great Britain, your Canada, your Australia, the United States, New Zealand on down the line to do the same thing. It creates this bidding war, if you will, between your powerful nations that are trying to get grain. Because again, lots and lots of grain locked up in war right now. It's kind of landlocked in Ukraine. The Ukrainians can't get it out, or their processing plants have been hit. I know some of the ships are at the bottom of the ocean over there right now. I mean, the Russians, they're playing warfare with food, and they knew this going in. I mean, this is why they secured the things they secured. So, food prices are gonna continue to climb. I wanted to say they're gonna start to soar, but they're already kind of soaring depending on what you're buying in your grocery store. But this is gonna continue. Like, the beatings there are going to continue. There's no way around it. I mean, you can grow your own food for sure, but if you're buying anything at the grocery store right now, I promise you, you're paying more than you were 2 years ago, and that's just gonna continue to get worse. Student loans now coming back into play. So this is extra money out of the pockets of tens of millions of Americans that again are already on the brink in many cases. And many Americans have just been treading water since 2020, since the pandemic. And the way to put this, I think, would be Americans have been treading water. Here comes the high tide. The high tide is about to hit. That's the feeling, the vibe that I kinda get for September and October. I don't think anything outside of that, craziness-wise. Um, I'm watching the Trump trial, all this drama, and I'm watching what's going on in Europe, and of course, I'm still paying attention to Taiwan and the Middle East, but nothing has happened. North Korea is firing missiles, but they always do this, right? Russia's moving missiles around, but they've been doing this for a while. ICBMs even. Nothing else crazy, I think, in September and October. So moving along now to November and December 2023. I think November, middle of November, this is when the reality really sets in for two groups. Number one, your average American. This is what I was talking about last week when I said your average American at some point, prepper or not, in most cases not, the wheels are gonna stop. They're gonna come to a grinding halt, and they're going to realize we're screwed as a nation. Economically, we're toast. When this happens, panic will ensue, okay? And I think that you're going to begin to see that middle of November, because middle of November is when people typically are preparing for Thanksgiving. Some people don't celebrate it, whatever, that's fine. Celebrate whatever you want to. But a lot of families do celebrate Thanksgiving, and they're going to have to I don't they're gonna have to pivot off of some of the foods and some of the entrees they normally would celebrate with. And this is going to be a huge admission to a lot of people, I think, that have been living with their head in the sand. We can't afford Thanksgiving dinner this year in the way that we typically do. We're going to have to eat other meats, maybe go meatless, this sort of thing. It's going to be a very big wake up call. Christmas shopping season will be a bust, and it is going to have major implications. And This is very ironic. Let me just say this. They don't want to mention the word Christ. They don't want to hear the name Christ. They don't want anybody mentioning the word Christmas, boogie, woogie, woogie, and all this stuff, right? But so many of these woke companies are hanging by a thread, literally hoping and praying that they have a great holiday shopping season because they need it to bail themselves out. Well, guess what? They're not going to, because Christians and people that celebrate Christmas, again, if you don't celebrate it, that's you, do your own thing. But Christians are also hurting when it comes to money right now. Nobody's immune. That's the theme this morning. Nobody is immune to what's happening in Joe Biden's America. Not when it comes to the economy. Nobody's immune. Whether they're working 20 hours a week, 80 hours a week, not working at all, retired and getting SSI. Everybody is getting hammered with this economy right now, and it stinks. And because of this, Christmas shopping is going to be scaled way back. And I believe it's going to set off an economic chain reaction. You're going to see layoffs. Post Christmas shopping season, you're going to see layoffs. You're going to see a lot of shuttering stores, smaller businesses, things like this, and I believe in shopping small. I believe in shopping local, but at the same time, I believe there's a burden on these smaller local shops to stock things that people want to buy at a competitive enough price. You put decent stuff in there, you only are asking a little more for it than a national chain I'm in. But if you're trying to sell me something that's worth $10 and you're selling it for 50 and you're telling me to shop local, that's not happening. I live in the real world. But anyway, economic chain reaction. It's going to affect a lot of people. When these people lose their jobs, these people are also barely hanging by a thread before losing their jobs. You understand? It's like a domino effect. Heating bills will soar this year. Promise you. Energy is a major, major worldwide concern right now. It is a self-inflicted wound. This wound was inflicted by the WEF and people's willingness, the weef, as we say, right? And people's blind willingness to follow the weef off of the cliff. We did it to ourselves, not us beaverines, but Americans in general, you know? Suck it up. I hate it for anybody that's not behind the weef on this because we're gonna have to pay the price too. We're paying higher heating and stuff this winter, but to the lemmings that just follow the weef blindly, you get what you get. Um, Mandates, I think, will be back. Lockdowns, I don't know, man. I'm gonna level with y'all this morning. I think they're gonna try lockdowns. I don't know that lockdowns are gonna fly. Not in 2023. Mandates, okay. I think enough people are gonna slap the face diapers on. Enough people are gonna stand 6 feet apart and chirp about it under their breath. I think people will do that. All right. But I don't know that they're gonna jump on lockdowns again. I gotta be honest with you. Even the people that did it the first time, because there's so much other stuff going on, because people are struggling financially and barely hanging by a thread and getting hit with, student loans and not being able to afford to buy Christmas or Thanksgiving dinner, they may not be willing to put up with it. And I hope that they're not. I pray that they're not. So, what does spring 2024 look like? And again, chime in, add whatever you want to this morning, please. Let me know if I'm right or wrong on something. I don't mind. So, if the war in Ukraine is still going, and I believe that it will be, I believe that it'll be much larger by spring of 2024. It will intensify. We heard a lot this year about the spring offensive from Ukraine, but the truth is both sides had a spring offensive, and Russia spent theirs digging in, which is why we see the static trench style warfare that we're seeing right now. Both sides will will be bulkier, okay, because, NATO is gonna have a lot more stuff there. I believe Russia's gonna have a lot more stuff there on that side, and we'll see spring offensives. Trump's trial will be the biggest story here in the United States, though. There'll be a lot of stuff going on in Europe there, with the war in Ukraine, but everybody here at home, I think, is gonna be locked in on the Trump trial. How could they not be? I think they said March, right, is when this man's going on trial. It will suck up the entire news cycle for a very long time, the duration of the trial, and most of the people that are watching are just Americans that are interested in to see what happens. Um, because we all have our opinions, right? My opinion, political hit job. They're trying to get rid of the I'm not saying the guy never did anything wrong. Believe me, okay? I'm not falling off the cliff with Trump here, but I'm just saying he's the top guy that the Republicans have. He's out polling Biden everywhere that you look. They're I think they're trying to beat him before they have to cheat him, so to speak. But that's my opinion. I think you're gonna have your never Trumpers with the derangement syndrome and all this vile stuff just pouring out of their mouth, watching the trial. And then, of course, you're gonna have your always Trumpers no matter what, watching the trial. I mean, it's just it's gonna consume people's lives for a while. And it's probably going to lead to political violence either way, if I'm being honest. If the trial goes poorly for Trump and he goes to jail, I do expect that there would be some political violence somewhere. Not advocating for it, just calling a spade a spade. Likewise, if this man beats these charges that are against him, these indictments, he's gonna be polling even higher at that point, and I believe if he beats the charges, Democrats, these never Trumpers, these Tifa types, they're gonna realize Biden is beat at that point if Biden's the guy, and they're not gonna like that very, very much, and I think that ends with political violence. I think it's gonna trigger some violence no matter what. That violence combined with an uptick in crime because of the economy will lead to a run on guns and ammo. Spring of 2024 circling. There will be a run on guns and ammo directly following that trial one way or the other, because one side or the other is gonna be angry, they're gonna be scared about the future of the country, and that always, always, always leads with a run on guns and stacking ammo and hard limits put into place and stuff like this, okay? Summer of 2024, total chaos. I don't even know how to explain the kind of chaos I have in my head for the summer of 2024. The closest comparable event I can come up with here, the Tifa riots that we saw breaking out city to city to city. Now, if we see those, I still think it would be post-election if Trump were put back into the White House, okay? But we're gonna see something, I think, on a similar level, summer of 2024. It's like a trash bag filled with inflation, crime through the roof, soaring utility bills and cost of living, and just this feeling of uncertainty, having hundreds of millions of Americans that, honest to God, have no idea what our country's gonna look like moving forward. Combined again with this heat and all these other issues, it's just not gonna be a good place here in the United States of America. Fall of 2024, I think things become a little less chaotic, out in public. We're still gonna be a divided nation, but I think America is at this point, they've decided who they're gonna vote for one way or the other. The people that were on the fence, they know. And I think it's all about everyone waiting with bated breath to see who the president, is post-election, whether they're elected, selected, cheated, whatever. Doesn't matter. I don't think one person is going to be able to change the trajectory of the country anyway. Um, there I think Trump is a candidate that can slow down the collapse, but he's not gonna be able to stop the collapse in 4 years. I'm sorry, guys, if that's what you're waiting on. Most will pin their hopes on the election result. Many patriots are sitting around and they're praying for Trump. Nothing wrong with that. But they're praying for Trump because they think if Trump gets into office, he's gonna be able to save the United States of America as we know it, and he's not. He's a stopgap at best. You know, a lot of never Trumpers are sitting around praying that Trump doesn't even beat the charges, doesn't even get to election time because they feel like, if we've got 4 more years of Biden and Harris, we'll fully be a socialist country at that point. No more of that nasty constitutional republic or however these demented people think. So most people will be sitting around waiting to see how this election goes, but smart people will be prepping. Smart people aren't sitting around waiting on the election results one way or another. They're interesting to talk about. They're interesting to debate back and forth, but they're not changing the landscape very much, to be honest. Nothing is going to happen on, the presidential election, the eve of the presidential election. It's not like you're going to wake up the next day and your gas is back down to $2. Your food bill is cut in half, utilities are cut in half. Those days are gone. Those days are gone. Gas companies are used to getting a certain amount per gallon now. They're not going to back down too far. Food companies aren't going to slash their profits in half. It is what it is. Utility companies know they can take X amount from us, and we'll do it. A president's not going to change that, to be honest with you. And the C-19 is really a wild card for me in the fall of 2024. Again, I don't think it's going to stop the election. Maybe they want mail-in ballots. I'm not saying they don't. I'm definitely not taking the Weef's side, but I'm saying it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if Trump goes back in, and I don't know, the whole thing's a powder keg getting ready to go off. Winter of 2024. More questions than anything for y'all at this point. Do we have a country left in the winter of 2024? Following the presidential election, the results of the election, do we have a country left? Because no matter who wins, who's selected on, election night, man, this country's just split right down the middle. Um, is there a peaceful transfer of power? You have to consider it. Maybe Biden is reelected, but if he's not and Trump somehow gets back into office, is there gonna be a peaceful transfer of power? I think it's a question worth asking. Or do Democrats try and rush something together 11th hour that would try and disqualify Trump for from an office that he won? I don't know. Do communists make their move at that point? You know? Should Trump win, uh, re-election, do communists go ahead and make a move and say, "It's time. It's time to upend what we have, the constitutional republic. It's time to install something new." Um, on the flip side of the coin, if we get 4 more years, of Biden, especially if we get it under very shady circumstances, again, I might add, do constitutionalists finally make their move? Or do they just sit around and complain about it and say voting doesn't work and we really have no plan B here. Let's just keep going through the motions. I don't know. These are just the questions in my head. Do we finally see blue helmets coming in to kind of I called it man, I called it this morning a shotgun wedding. I think on Patreon, between the 2 countries that live within the confines of the United States of America. Is that the point where we finally see blue helmets coming in to kind of negotiate between the 2 sides and then this shotgun wedding? Is that the point where we begin to see strict lockdowns? Maybe the C-19 rears its ugly head and we see lockdowns, or do we see just a divorce of the country following the presidential election/selection? It's hard to say, but I'll tell you this, buckle up, folks, because we are about to experience history together. Thank you very much for being here this morning. Thank you if you shot a thumbs up. Until next time, y'all take care. God bless.